Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman for NBITechGuys.com. This is Tech Watch. We keep an eye on tech so you don't have to. Brought to you by NetworkProvidersInc.com. If you want a partner in IT that can handle strategic IT, security, and more, think help desk, a friend in IT at your fingertips, NetworkProvidersInc.com. Let's turn to the issue at hand today. AI, always in the mix. You can't talk about anything in tech without mentioning AI right now. But I've got Marshall Toplansky, is that how you say it? Toplansky with me, ladies and gentlemen. And he is a worldwide premier AI expert. Welcome to the show, sir.
Sam, thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into AI?
Well, I am a professor at Chapman University in California. I'm the innovation professor at their business school. And so AI has been an important part of what I teach. However, I created one of the first AI machine learning companies called Wise Window, which was able to make sense out of the hundreds of millions of social media comments and then be able to predict for clients, for businesses, what the impact of what we were hearing was on their business results.
So from an IT guy point of view, you're putting together a bunch of pieces, advertising and answers. You're putting together kind of a summary and culmination. All the pieces of AI kind of branched out from that, didn't it?
That's right. And then what happened was originally we had to teach machines manually to recognize comments that were about, say, an industry like cars or something.
Sure.
And teach it manually what the difference between a Toyota and a Nissan was. And over time, what's happened with AI is it now has learned to do those things themselves. So the machines are actually doing a better job of teaching themselves than we could.
And that's a blessing and a half. We see it really in the programming world with Claude and some of those things now. Really, that's where it gets its start because it has IT origins. But we're starting to see it go everywhere. People are worried about their jobs. Jeff Bezos says, you know what, I'm not worried about jobs. Yeah, there's going to be a dearth while we lose a bunch of jobs. But it's like any revolution. There's going to be a time when people aren't retrained or reacclimated, if you will. But once they do, you know what, you're going to have so many jobs, it's not even funny. Do you agree with him?
You know, I do agree with them. I think here's the way I look at it. AI is a productivity machine. I know we have this great fantasy that it's a sci-fi enemy waiting to happen. You know, it's going to be the next Ultron. All of that is just, sci-fi BS. What at its core is AI is all about increasing productivity by basically saying, hey, if you have repetitive things that need to be done, and AI can do a better job of figuring out what the best pattern, the optimal pattern of how to do that is, then humans can. And so humans will lose their jobs in areas where what they do is very formulaic. It doesn't have a lot of wiggle room or a lot of creativity. But
process,
they'll create
mechanics, jump A, B, C, D, E, right?
Right. But they'll gain jobs where empathy, where relating to people, where leading people, where there's visionism and decisions. That's where you're going to see an increase in jobs. And my own personal theory, Sam, is that it's going to play out in entrepreneurship. That we're going to see, because AI makes it so much easier to get into business without having to hire a gazillion people, we're going to see a lot of entrepreneurs start companies based on using AI technology, and then they'll grow and they'll need more people to be able to reach out to customers, make a real relationship, those kinds of things. And that's where the real growth in the economy is going to go.
So here's what I did. I wrote an AI fact checker, and it will take the audio that I give it by talking. It will consolidate it, summarize it. It'll separate opinion from fact. It will take the supposed facts, run them through AI and fact check them and give me back a report. So I get to fact check the fact checker live. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect use of it. And I think what's interesting about fact checking is a lot of people think about AI as making stuff up. Actually, as it gets more and more trained and as more and more people use it, it makes less and less up. But your kind of a point about using it as a fact checker, people now take one set of facts that have been created, put it through an AI, go to another AI and say, okay, what's wrong with that? And the AIs learn from each other about where the mistakes are.
And the more we do it, the smarter it'll get. And it's going to happen so fast it'll knock your socks off.
It's already happening.
So where do you think we go with AI? You know, there's the idea, as you mentioned, that it's the end of the world. They're going to take over. It's dark force tyranny. I agree that technology is neither good nor bad. It depends on whose hands it's in, right? Can we make sure this is crowdsourced enough? Can we make sure this is grassroots enough not to have a takeover? Or do you think the big corporations will and have already taken over?
Well, I worry about big corporations having an abnormal amount of power.
Sure.
Because it's like you got 3 casinos that basically run all the gambling. This is the...
And they have a special privilege at the government where the lever of government, the lever of success is already engineered for their ends, right?
Right. However, when it comes, it may be that we have AI platforms that are very much concentrated in a few hands. But that doesn't mean that the fact that you have the platforms that run AI doesn't mean that they run the applications. There's much more money to be made on building applications for AI. And
in other words, real solutions in the hands of people.
Right. For instance, your sponsor for this podcast is a company that creates solutions for companies.
Absolutely.
I'm guessing, I don't know them, but I'm guessing they're not $1 trillion corporation.
No, certainly not.
And so they'll be able to use the power of AI to create applications for companies, for smaller businesses that, multiply that times 1 million, and you've got a very, very large economic powerhouse.
So let me ask you this. I know that parents right now are wondering about their own jobs, obviously. They're the ones going to get caught in the middle a little bit if they don't plan for it and embrace AI. But you know what? Their children are going to grow up with AI. And parents are wondering, what jobs are my children going to have? And I would be the first to tell you that I think there's going to be some things that are easy answers. But most of it, we're not going to be able to answer yet because it depends on how fast it goes. It depends on who develops what. It depends on what direction it's taken. There's so many issues to this. But I hope it starts with security because that's one of the things we need the most, right?
Yeah, I do believe that. I believe you're right. I think that we don't really know what the jobs of the future are going to be. There are some obvious things, right? Like, for instance, we will always need humans to manage the human infrastructure. So if you're going to have plumbing pipes in your house burst, an AI might actually detect that, but a plumber's going to have to fix it up.
Recommend solutions.
But some guy's going to have to come over and fix it.
Yes.
Right? Anything where we're touching physical infrastructure, I believe will be safe. The other area, I think...
What about robots, though? Some are saying, that's not true because AI can control robots, and robots will eventually be able to do it. I got a son who had a big old plumbing problem. They sent a bot down there, and we took pictures of it and came back with a report. And how far are we from that kind of stuff?
I think we're pretty far away because I think while a bot may go out and find what a problem is and detect what a problem is.
Yes.
But each individual case is unique. The pipe is laid out in a different way in this case than that case.
Yes.
I need this material versus that material. That's where humans come in. And I don't see the bots doing that. Now, will a bot end up cleaning your house? Well, yeah, maybe. Maybe we'll have robot vacuum cleaners that are better than the ones we have today. Those kinds of things, yes. But we already have tools, right? Humans have always had tools. That doesn't really, that's not an AI thing.
Yeah, think of it before you had a vacuum cleaner. It's like that, right?
Right.
Vacuum cleaner didn't change the world, but it sure made it easier.
Right.
And so I look at this, and I think it's really a dexterity discussion to a great degree, right?
Right.
The robots can move around, but they can't move like you can. They can't provide the on-the-fly intuition that you can.
Exactly.
They can't provide the unique, 96 gazillion scenarios that I got to put together on the fly that the brain can do. We're nowhere close to that, are we?
We're nowhere near close to that, and I don't think we will ever be close to that. I also think, though, that there'll be other opportunities. So jobs, one of my big hopes is that, what we're missing in society is real, genuine human connection.
Like this show? I'm with you.
Like this show. Right? but people who are, we've gotten to a world where, you want to find a date, you swipe left, you swipe right, swipe left. That's not real
it's not human
interaction.
Sure.
That kind of empathy, right, that comes from being able
it's when I shake your hand for a business deal and you look into my eyes and hey, this guy will be a reliable partner. And it's when you look at a girl and she looks at you and you can see in her eyes that it's real. That kind of stuff.
And it's an emotional, non-mechanical action there. Right?
Yes, sir.
And those are the kinds of things that, as that we're actually hurting for in society. I think it's hurting family formation. I think it's hurting fundamental adherence to ethical standards.
Yeah.
And I think these are the things where if people can be freed up to be able to actually have time to have more human connections, that's where I think the value of the AI can come in.
And that really comes down to business. If I'm a business executive and I work 60 hours a week now, just say, and then you give me AI and now I'm outputting 110 equivalent hours, is the company going to take all that extra output benefit, or are they going to say, Sam, you're such a great executive, I can move you back to 45 hours, and with AI you'll give me 90 or 85 hours? Are we going to be humble enough and appropriate enough in society, moral enough or ethical enough to allow that balance to take place, do you think?
Well, the answer to that is it depends on us.
Yes, sir.
There's no dictum from up high that says this is the way it has to go. If people have to stand up and say, I need to lead my life. And by the way, I see that happening already.
Amen.
I see people, so I'm a college professor. I see my students saying, I don't want to work as hard as you did when you were working in the real world, Professor Toplansky. And I tell them about how I worked 80, 90 hours as an entrepreneur. I don't want that. I want some balance between my life, my real life, and my work life. And they're insisting on it to their employers. And if we can make that a norm, then things will go our way. If not, there'll always be people who say, no, I'll work the 160 hours or whatever it starts to be, right? But you'll always have that edge case.
And then the other side will be people like us who say we're not doing that. Most people will follow where the society goes in the middle, which hopefully has more common sense. I do know that a big company that dealt with a lot of stuff regarding AI, they basically didn't have flexible hours and people wouldn't work for them. And then once they started offering flexible hours, boom, they had all kinds of resonance.
Yeah, it's called the marketplace.
And I love it.
Free market economics, right? Which is one of the reasons why we're in Freedom Fest.
Absolutely.
To celebrate that.
All right, so what about the cyborgs? Elon Musk and others are kind of saying, hey, we're going to put this little thing in your brain. You're going to be half human, half computer. You're going to be AI driven. What do you think of this?
This is of course the debate that's on everybody's mind.
I understand.
Whether that's ever going to happen.
I say it's not going to happen.
Here's one plausible scenario. I agree with you, by the way. I don't think we'll be cyborgs, although people worry about if the nano particles that they put in your body to monitor all of your physical physical
none of the guys in
operations,
healthcare, right?
Right. Well, then what does that? If it knows you better than what you're going to do next, than your own intuition does, then are you really a cyborg or not? Right. There's a book by Harari called Homo Deus that talks about this.
Yeah.
So I do believe what we're going to find is we're going to have nanomachines that are going to be going into people's bodies.
Yeah, you're going to swallow them.
And you're going to swallow them, and they're going to monitor everything that's going on. And the result of that monitoring will mean a vast improvement in your health.
And a lot of that's tremendous.
Lots of things, right?
And they'll do it so quick, eventually people will live to be 150 years old.
Right. And so is that a good thing or a bad thing? I personally think that's a good thing. So
it's a great thing.
So is there a fine line between that and being a cyborg? Actually, I say no. Being a cyborg means that you've given up any kind of personal will or personal ambition, and you're giving yourself over to
your
whatever the machine
and your intuition is gone, right?
You're a member of the board.
Sure.
If you remember that from Star Trek, right? Yep. So I don't see that happening. And by the way, I don't even think the technology to make that happen is going to be around and available for maybe another couple of 100 years. But
right. So I don't think people need to be afraid. That's the reason I bring all this up. I think people need to step back for a second. They need to understand technology. One of the phrases we use on this show, we want technology to serve us, not own us.
That's right.
We want technology to be in its proper place. We're the creator. Technology is the creation. We need to understand that's the way it will always be if we're wise. And if we understand it, and if we realize that we as individuals have conscience. Computers don't have a conscience. And so when we talk about artificial intelligence, we need to think of the first word more than the last word. We seem to think the last word tells it all. Intelligence, it knows everything. No, it's artificial intelligence, right?
And the way to think about AI is just as another tool. Think back to hunter-gatherers 40,000 years ago, some guy comes up with the idea of, oh, you know what? I can take a sharp stone and I can kill an animal for meat faster than if I used my own hands and try to trick it somehow.
Sure.
Well, does that make you more of a murderer? I don't think so.
No, of course not.
It's a case of humans learning to use tools to enhance their lives. AI is exactly the same thing. It's a tool that people can use.
It's artificial efficiency.
Right. I think the labeling it as artificial intelligence is kind of a misnomer anyway. It's not. It's a memory machine. It's a machine that looks for patterns and says, oh, you know what? Based on everything that I've seen, I would say that this is the decision that you should make that conforms most with what the average is that I see.
From what I know,
right. And right now, it doesn't learn everything. It's getting to know everything.
But it can learn from what it knows or what it has in its reference point, but it can't learn from outside of it, right?
Right.
And that's what people need to know. What about quantum computing then? What's that going to do to the world?
Well, quantum computing is actually kind of interesting.
It, right?
It'll accelerate it because it'll allow you to model more moving variables
faster
at the same time. Today, our computing is done sequentially. It's done really fast, but it basically says, do this, if that, do this, if that, do that, do that.
Yeah, top down, so to speak.
And so it has to iterate a long cycle. And fortunately, because it can do like a quadrillion equations in a second.
It seems like it's doing things.
It seems like it's doing fast only because you don't see it happening at a slow level.
Sure.
But it only can do one thing at a time.
Right.
Quantum computing allows you to do more than one thing.
So we're talking about now parallel stuff, right?
Right. It allows you to be able to say, it's not either this or that. It could be either this, that, or maybe something else.
Or it could be spawn multiple agents to do certain things, pieces of the pie, and come back and report and fill in the gaps, right?
Right.
All right. So where do we go with all this knowledge that we have now? You've written books, or articles. You've done a lot of things. Catch me up on what you're doing. You do a podcast to help people catch up on it and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right. We do a podcast to look at how technology is affecting economic power and what its impact on society is. So that's what the Feudal Future podcast is all about. So it's available on Apple or any of the places that you get a podcast. And we focus on, at Chapman University, in the Center for Demographics and Policy, where I live, we focus on this nexus of people are suffering from problems in life. They're suffering from not being able to afford to buy a house. They're suffering from not having social mobility. They're worried about whether their kids are going to be successful. All of these issues are bubbling up in society. What is the impact of technology on that? How can it be harnessed to improve those kinds of things? And even beyond technology, how do we need to think differently as a society about these kinds of things to create better policies that can actually help create an environment that helps us all prosper?
I'm about a lower tax policy. I'm about a supply policy guy. I want supply. And right now we've got computer chip battles about memory chips and everything else. And right now all the AI companies are cropping up all the memory and all the to where, power costs are going up, internet costs are going up, it's going to be hard to get a computer here for a little while. Is that going to even out, do you think?
The free market will solve this problem. Free market and technology is going to solve this problem. But yes, in life we have short-term challenges that we have to face. Longer term, life adapts, and we figure out ways to solve problems. And I believe that's a solvable problem.
Do you think we'll have a AI boom.com bust kind of an equivalent?
Well, I do worry about, and I know I'm not the only one that worries about this, but there are other people that make a very good argument on the other side. I worry that we will be overbuilding capacity. Today, we think of AI as requiring a certain amount of energy and a certain amount of compute power to be able to do
but we'll get more efficient and better at it, and we'll learn to manage tokens better. And
5 years from now, if it follows the curve, the productivity curve that every other digital technology has followed,
yes,
this is not going to be a problem. And we may end up, depending upon how much we build, we may end up with an overcapacity of
yes, sir. And so we need to be cautious of that. We need to be realistic about that. Also, AI right now is kind of the surge. Pretty soon it'll settle down. Right. Business won't just use it to spend tokens. Will the world drop money, drop cash, and all of a sudden just be a tokenized society?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that I get it. I get the idea of what the attractiveness of it is, but I think that so long as we have the vested interest of sovereign nations,
Yes.
that is unlikely to happen. And I don't think we want to give up on the idea of sovereign nations quite yet.
Amen. I think we never want to.
Well, I think that sovereign nations and government bring some great positives.
Sure.
They
Agree.
screw up in massive ways.
We agree.
but they do bring some positives, and I think that the issue
they say
of
the founders
digital currency
governments are instituted among men for a purpose, right?
Right. Well, and I'm just worried about the potential for anarchy that comes from digital currency.
All right. So what have I left out that people need to know? I'm not very good at this. I don't really know very much.
I think you've covered. I think the main point that I think we should leave people with for your audience is, if you're worried about AI as this monster that's going to come alive and eat you and suddenly destroy humanity the way we see it in Schwarzenegger movies and in science fiction, this is a ridiculous thing to be worried about. What you do need to do is you need to understand what it can do. You need to not overly rely on the answers that you get out of AI right now. Continue to use your critical thinking skills to dive deeply into things and don't just take the top layer of the onion and accept what AI tells you. But learn to use it. Dive in. It is amazingly simple compared to other technologies in the past. Amazingly simple to use AI. Get in there, mess around with it, play with it, and see what you can do with it.
And let's talk for a second before we let you go about the positives, because everybody else is talking about the negatives. I want to talk about a lot of the positives. We mentioned living to be 150 because AI might be able to intelligently tell you what's wrong with your body, and you can take quicker action and solutions to correct things. And the more you do that, and the more you give your body the right things, and one size doesn't fit all with the human body, right? So when we do that, we could extend life. That's one example. Simpler work weeks for people where they can do more with less, if you will. What other positives do you see on the horizon for people? Because that's something I think people really need to know, and I don't hear much about it.
Well, I think, I kind of put it in the area of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? We talk about life. We've talked about the pursuit of happiness by virtue of productivity. I think from a liberty point of view, because it breaks down the barriers to information and breaks down the camps. Oh, no, you can't do that, because you can actually now talk to an AI and say, well, what is out there? How can I make better choices? That gives you more agency.
Give me the 80-20 rule on a topic, and pretty soon something I knew nothing about. I don't know everything, but I know enough to be reasonably intelligent, right?
Well, and
that's
you can even say to the AI, okay, you've given me the 80-20, now give me the fringe cases.
Yeah,
what are the people on the one side or the other saying it that are kind of the radical nutcases, or in whatever the topic is?
Sure.
So suddenly you have more freedom, more agency as a human being. I call that liberty. And so I think it is enabling life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Freedom. Agency used wisely is liberty.
Yes, exactly.
Because otherwise you'll lose it, right?
But don't be afraid of it. And by the way, learn it. It doesn't take, you don't have to become a special language specialist. You don't have to know any code. Just start talking to it, and you'll be amazed what comes out of it, but be critical about it, right? If it says, here's the answer to this, say, well, what other answers are out there? What do you mean? What about this? What about that? And continually challenge it, and it'll educate you in a much more effective way.
Run it through several reasoning layers, meaning ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, and you can learn a lot about things because it comes from different perspectives. It has different mindsets from the way the programmers decided to plumb and concatenate that information for you. So that's an important tip for everybody to kind of consider.
Exactly.
That will make a big difference in the reality that you get. You won't just get one viewpoint. You'll start to see that even AI has a lot of different viewpoints depending on who's at the helm of it, if you will. That's important. All right, last question for you before we let you go. When we think about AI, some people are like, you know what, I'm just not an IT guy, or I'm just not computer savvy. Right now it's prompt, like the DOS prompt or the Linux prompt of yesteryear, the Unix prompt, right?
Right.
But eventually AI is going to be less and less prompt. It's going to evolve. And so when the Windows came out, we went from a prompt to a graphical interface. People are starting on this. People are starting to say, we don't care what reasoning layer we use. We can plumb a gazillion models. In fact, it's getting smart enough to pick the model based on what you're trying to do, et cetera, et cetera. How long do you think it'll be till it'll be more of a GUI and you won't need to be near as technical and write, quote, the perfect prompt, so to speak, right?
Well, of course, it depends on what you're trying to do with it. But for 99% of the things that you want to do, you don't even need, you call it a prompt. A prompt is English language. Yes, there are some conventions that you can use for shortcuts to things, but if you tell it in plain, ordinary English like you would be talking to your family, that's good enough as a prompt. So from a GUI, from a user interface point of view, that's pretty good. Now, are there going to be other ways that will activate? Who the heck knows? It'll probably be we'll blink or we'll say something and verbally that'll pick up our tone. All of those things will be happening, and that'll be improving the interface between the systems and how
we're talking a multi-sensory AI.
Right.
Is really the future.
Right.
So for blind people, for example, they won't really be able to blink. I'm one of those, right?
Yeah.
But I will be able to give it tonalities. I will be able to give it touch. I will be able to give it things that it can know, the shake of the head, the this, the that, to where it's going to be able to cue on all signs to not only know what you want to do, but really gauge more of your emotional intent of what you're after, too, right?
By the way, and for blind people and people who have other issues like that, it's not inconceivable to me that we'll be in a world where we'll be able to repair optic nerve damage. We'll be able to repair oral problems. And so, who knows where all of this stuff will go.
Sure.
But that will depend on a world where we have nanotechnology working together with AI to diagnose and repair problems.
And I'm looking forward to it. In the meantime, they're working on glasses, though. And even my cell phone right now, I can literally point it at, and I can give it eventually descriptions to where, someone's walking up to me, I can point my phone and say, hey, there's Dr. Marshall right there, right? I mean, that's happening right this minute where I can basically point at things and say, what is it? It can say, Sam, it's a can of Spam.
Right.
It's a this, it's a that. And so there's tremendous advancements happening for all kinds of people in all kinds of situations, disability or otherwise.
Yeah, so it's an exciting future.
The sighted is driving down the road and all of a sudden their car beeps because there's somebody in their blind spot. That's interesting, right?
It is.
But what about this idea then with technology? You've got helpers for everything now, right? At what point does too much help? Does that make sense? If your car drives itself and everything else, but yet you have to be at the helm and pay attention all the time, it's hard to pay attention when your car can do it all, right? At what point is too much help?
So, in other words, do we lose capability?
Yeah, not only lose capability,
but
we check out.
I saw a really fun meme the other day.
Yeah.
The meme was 1 + 1 = ? Don't worry, Claude will tell you.
That's right.
Right. So do we lose the ability to add and subtract? Well, here's my question. How many people do you know could not get from point A to point B unless they put it into their GPS system?
You're right. And I used to have to stop and go into the 7-Eleven and say, hey, man,
where is
this road is?
Right. Or sighted people would say, here's a map. Right.
Sure.
And
that's right.
We've lost that ability. Does that make us inferior as a species?
I don't think so.
It may have changed what our capability, but something else came up to take its place. And so that's really where we're going. Now, I'm not advocating not knowing how to add and subtract.
Of course not.
But I am worried about people, as I said earlier, taking the top of the onion answer and not diving into it and just saying that's good enough for me. So that's my worry about it. But I think that it also enables you to then dive deeply for the people who have those skills.
It reminds me of the Native American population. In the day, they thought they were savages because they didn't live in modern circumstances as we do and know the things that we know. So we assumed they didn't know things or whatever. But yet, if you try to live out in the woods, they knew everything and we knew nothing, right?
Right. They had sensory capabilities far beyond ours.
And I compare that because that's really what this change will create, in a sense, right?
Well, thank you very much for really a stimulating conversation.
I appreciate it. Give your website and your name one more time.
The website is the Feudal Future Podcast. And I'm Marshall Toplansky, the innovation professor at the arduous business college at Chapman University in Orange, California.
And I'm Sam Bushman, a high-tech redneck IT professional. thanks for watching. This is Tech Watch. We keep an eye on tech so you don't have to. Brought to you by NetworkProvidersInc.com. When you want a partner in tech, think NetworkProvidersInc.com, NPITechGuys.com. Hey, make it a great tech day, will you? Hey.